Good morning, Jim.
Good morning, Jay.
All right, Jim. So let's start off with the Timberwolves, who rally from a deficit against Washington. Didn't play well in the first quarter, but came back, won the game 131-21. Big night from Anthony Edwards, 51 points. They and Denver are tied for the best record in the Western Conference, heading into a big game in Denver tonight. Your thoughts on the Wolves?
Edwards was spectacular, and I think the two things that stood out were that he scored 51 without just being a ball hog. He also had assists and rebounds and moved the ball, and he shot efficiently from three-point. And he has had a couple of funks this year where he's just lost his three-point shot. And for him to be effective enough for them to beat Western Conference playoff teams, he's going to have to be efficient from three and probably pretty prolific from three. So I think the biggest, the layups, the dunks, the crazy drives are all spectacular and fun to watch, but I think his three-point shooting is going to be a big key for this team. I think that was really important. And another dominant game from Gobert, and another good game from Alexander Walker again.
So, big game against Denver tonight. The winner of that game then, in good position to grab that number one seed. So, I mean, this is going to feel like a different than just a regular season game, right?
It will. And we've already had the conversation. We don't know how valuable the number one seed is going to be, but you want to play for it. And, this is a historic season for this franchise. And for them, if they could, we all know that what Denver did last year was ridiculous. They were the best team in basketball by far. And here the Wolves are slugging it out with pretty much the same Nuggets roster after giving a decent run in the playoffs last year. So, it's just a big game. It's a fun game. This is the reward for having a team this good, is you get to watch them play games like this. They lose it, not the end of the world, but if they win, it would just be another really cool moment and a cool season.
Certainly, the Twins are struggling. They got beat 6-3 by the Dodgers last night. They've dropped 4 in a row and 6 of their last 7. They did get solo home runs late in the game from Ryan Jeffers, Carlos Correa, and Alex Kirilloff, but another not-so-good start from Louis Varland. Your thoughts on the Twins?
Yeah, it's tough when you're struggling and you have to play the most stacked roster in baseball. This is not a good time for them to get well. They need a good get-well series. It's probably not going to happen against the Dodgers, obviously. But there are troubling, trends here. And, and I've been talking about this basically since, the home opener. The lineup just doesn't look right without Royce Lewis in it. You're going from Royce Lewis, probably your best player, your best clutch hitter, maybe your best power hitter, batting in the middle of the lineup, taking great at bats, to Willie Castro, who's a utility player. He's a good utility player, but he's not supposed to play every day. He's not supposed to watch out Thursday.
All right.
So you have a huge fall off there. Then Julian and Wallner are giving them nothing. And I wrote a piece going into the season saying, hey, this offense was one of the best in baseball second half of last year, and they have a chance to be great again. Of course, that was when Royce was healthy. And they're getting nothing out of second base. They're getting nothing out of right field. They're getting nothing out of third base, 3 offensive positions, and it's killing.
Jim, do you think they'll consider bringing up Brooks Lee?
He's been out with a back injury. So, I always say, I don't always say, but about this team, I feel like it's a good team if healthy. They're missing their best player. They're missing their all-star closer. They're missing their best left-handed reliever. And Royce Lewis's absence has been the biggest one. Brock Stewart's been excellent. They've had the bullpen. The end of the bullpen has been good enough. They're missing good at-bats. And Royce Lewis not only takes those great at-bats, he kind of leads the way in taking good at-bats. The strikeouts are coming too often with runners in scoring position. Julian looks lost. He's taking too many pitches. Wallner looks like he's fighting himself, which is, I thought he was going to have a big year. He's probably going to have to go down to AAA and sort himself out. He's just trying too hard. He's striding into the ball too much. And the third base problem isn't going to be solved until Royce Lewis comes back. There's nobody else on the roster who can really fill in for him.
Do you have any idea how long Brooks Lee will be out?
I would guess. We're probably still talking about a few weeks.
Okay.
By the time you get him healthy, get him up and running, get him at bats against high quality. I mean, you can't just pop him off the injured list and pop him into his major league debut. He's got to be ready for it physically and mentally, so it's still a ways away.
Jim, the Minnesota Wild officially are not going to be in the playoffs this year. They lose to Colorado 5-2 last night. Matt Boldy and Kirill Kaprizov each had a goal. Wild have 4 games left. Your thoughts on the Wild season?
Not enough good players. It's just that simple. And certainly Spurgeon's injury hurt them. But their lack of depth showed up. And I think some of it has to do with the Parisian Suter contracts. They just don't have the financial, they don't have any margin for error. And when they were really good a few years ago, they nailed every secondary type player they signed had a big year, including probably led by Ryan Hartman. Everybody they brought in did exactly what they hoped they would do. When you're tight on payroll, there is a path to victory, but you can't have any setbacks. You can't have anybody not perform well. You can't have injuries. And they had a lot of guys just not had great years. And it was kind of left to Kaprizov to play like a superstar. And he's a wonderful player, but I don't think that it was within his power or the power of the best handful of players on this team to lift the entire franchise.
Jim, let's touch on the Masters. You got the par 3 event today. Is that a fun event?
It is. It's a gorgeous little. I mean, this place is amazing. I'm staring out now at the driving range. The press center is set at the back end. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Of the driving range that you use for the tournament, and I think we're like 370 to 400 yards away, and I just had a ball roll up not that far from me. These guys are so good. And then you have, obviously, the course, which is sprawling and beautiful and with dramatic elevation changes that you might not see on TV. And then there's the par 3 over in the corner, and it's just gorgeous. It's just perfect, like everything here. It's just beautiful little holes. And the great thing about it is, you get to see these guys goofing around with their families, playing with their friends, hitting funky shots. You have chances, because they're not very long holes, you have chances for the older players to actually compete and hit it close. You get some hole-in-ones. You have a lot of interactions. It's actually a really cool event.
Jim, does Tiger and Phil have a chance to compete this weekend?
No. Just their games aren't in good order. And age does catch up to you at some point, finally. In Tiger, you have the combination of age and just he can't get through tournaments. I mean, he's played... he's played in one real tournament this year. He's played. I think he's made the cut. Oh, he made the cut last year with the Masters, and then he couldn't finish the 3rd round. All the injuries, the back, the knees. He just and one of the most underrated aspects of golf, especially here at the Masters, where it's so hilly and it's such a long walk, is just the physical exertion. You're walking up and down hills, and then you have to stand over a shot that requires great nerve and touch. And, he might be able to hold together for a round. Maybe, I just can't imagine him under these circumstances even making the cut, much less winning.
How about Rory McIlroy? Has he got a chance to, compete, maybe win this tournament, something he hasn't done yet?
Well, he always has a chance. He's a great player. But what is disturbing about his performances as he's tried to close out the career Grand Slam by winning the Masters is you can tell how much it's in his head, because he only plays well here these days when he's way behind. And then he'll put on a great rally. He'll have a great last round. He'll hit spectacular shots. But when he has a chance to win, when he needs to shoot a good first round, he doesn't. I think his average first round scoring here since he's like 73, and he's a great player. He should be taking advantage of these par 5s. He should be, but it's so obviously in his head. And what we saw with Sergio Garcia is he won it after people stopped expecting to win it. Sometimes that happens, so I can't tell you Rory's not going to win it, but he might be the kind of guy who wins it after people stop asking about it.
All right, Jim, what do you got in your podcasts?
Full slate is up. Good Dawn of Sports with Don Mitchell. Good chin music with Roy Smalley talking about the twins hitting approach and the problem therein. We have Mike Grimm's show. We have a new show with Kevin Gorg on hockey, Michael Russo, John Krasinski on the Wolves. Everything's at talknorth.com or on your favorite podcast app.
All right, Jim, thank you. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.
Thanks, Jim.
It's Jim Souhan, Star Tribune sports columnist, joining us every weekday morning at this time. Follow him on Twitter at SouhanStrib. Check out his latest column at Star Tribune or his podcast at talknorth.com. Jim this week is at Augusta National in Georgia, covering the Masters Golf Tournament, par 3 event today, and then the tournament starts tomorrow. And Jim is always brought to you by the Green Melon, downtown St. Cloud. News from ABC's next on WJON.